Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Tales from the Cottage, in which I, Rebecca McKernan, voiceover artist with a bit of a frog in my throat this morning, and actor of audiobooks, share with you some of the latest projects I've been working on. And today I would like to bring to you the latest offering from one of my favourite humans and wonderful, wonderful writer, Martin Schiller. Martin is a writer of, he loves a bit of science fiction mixed in with some good old historical research. So it's difficult to place him in a genre, somewhere between sci-fi and action thriller, strongly steeped in history of various eras. And this latest book is book 6 in his Our Man Adelaide series. They do sort of each work as stand-alone novels, but I would recommend reading them in sequence because, I mean, that's sort of logical, isn't it? Book 6 sees Adelaide. Well, let me read the back to you because better that I explain it to you in the author's own words than my likely garbled interpretation. Book 6, The Vitruvian Man. The United States uses a terrible new weapon to bring Japan to its knees. Adelaide is devastated, but then, to her surprise, she is given her freedom and a mission to travel to her shattered homeland, and there do what she can to aid in its recovery. But she has not forgotten her vow to see the men who murdered her students pay for their crimes with their lives. All the while, a shadowy group that even the council must obey has been watching her and her lover. What they want is as mysterious as they are. You see, from that blurb, it makes sense to read the rest of the books because I expect if you haven't read any of them, or listened to, rather, obviously, listen to them, that would make a lot of sense to you. So rather than... Oh, so sorry. First thing in the morning, I haven't finished my cup of tea yet. Rather than me, give you a full synopsis of the previous 5 books, do check out book 1 first. However, that said, I am going to read you the prologue of Martin Schiller's latest, Our Man Adelaide. And I will let you know, actually, I think this series was originally supposed to be like 5, maybe 6 books long. And every time I start recording a new book, Martin waves this sort of ominous threat, if you like, that this is likely to be the penultimate one. But then by the time I finished it, he says, oh no, it's all right, I'm going to write another 2 or 3. So who knows when it will end? Hopefully never. So this is the prologue. Mendocino County, California, United States, 16th June, 1973. Everyone was so very decent to me after the loss of my girls, Adelaide said bitterly. They all did their level best not to remind me of the tragedy, but always changed the subjects to happier topics whenever they were mentioned. And Colonel Armstrong, did he help? He did. He allowed me some time to grieve, but I insisted on remaining active, and soon found myself immersed in teaching a group of Hungarians, and then a class made up of Poles. In the meantime, the world spun on. After fighting on 2 fronts, Germany finally surrendered in May of 1945, but Japan remained undaunted. As for myself, I had no stomach for the stories in the newspapers, which I had already made it a habit to avoid the camp's cinema, which was as well. How so? You were too Oh God, sorry, I should have finished that cup of tea. You were too young to remember what the movies were like in those days, but after Pearl Harbor, Hollywood had enthusiastically cast the Japanese people into the role of irredeemable monsters, and as the Imperial Navy and Army went on to lose battle after battle, the American media redoubled its efforts without even a nod towards fairness. I must say that once America finally won, it was fascinating to watch how quickly these same monsters were made human again, once it became evident that we needed them to help us take a stand against communism in Asia. But isn't that the way of all wars? In our righteousness, we tend to portray our enemies as demons, and then, when we are the victors, we rehabilitate them in order to serve our own ends. And worse, we readily believe such nonsense, if only to pardon ourselves for what we did to them, which was, in the end, equally demonic, and just as unforgivable. However, as always, I am getting well ahead of myself, so I will leave it at that. Georgina made no comment, but asked, "How did William support you during this difficult time?" Adelaide smiled and allowed the change of subject. He made certain to shield me from the worst of the news, and did his best to remain upbeat. Although he told me that Raichi had been assigned to the Pacific Theatre, he made a point of omitting the fact that he had been stationed at Iwo Jima, or that he was one of the principal officers who had been placed in charge of the island's defence. He also prevented me from learning that Fujito had re-enlisted, or that, as the United States pressed ever closer to the home islands, that he had volunteered for the special kamikaze program. Did you resent this? Adelaide shook her head. No. Had I known it at the time, I do not think that I would have been able to bear it, and I am eternally grateful to him for shielding me as he did. If anything, it proved beyond a shadow of a doubt just how much he really loved me. As for my former students, when I did finally learn of their ultimate fate, I was not unhappy for them. Georgina was surprised by this. You weren't? No, and this is where the difference between East and West makes itself clear. While I was certainly saddened by their loss, I also felt a great pride filling my heart. You did? Yes, you see, both of them died serving the Emperor and their nation. Raichi ended his days defending a tunnel against a squad of Marines and managed to kill 10 of them before he himself was slain. As for Fujito, he drove his rocket-powered flying bomb straight into the starboard waterline of the USS Man Adelaide, breaking it in half and sending it to the bottom of the sea. Both of them died with honour, and as their teacher, I cannot think of a better end. Indeed, I must confess that I still envy them, for they died as heroes, and will forever be remembered by the Japanese people as I-Ray. I see, Georgina remarked, her features troubled. What of Kitiara, Naoshi, and General Bushida? Adelaide took in a deep breath, collected herself, and answered. Kitiara and Naoshi were sent on a mission to China in 1944. They disappeared, and to this day I do not know what befell them. And General Bushida? His fate was the hardest for me to grapple with, and I learned of it by way of a strange and terrible event. An event that had far-reaching consequences, not just for myself, but for the entire human race. It occurred on the afternoon of August the 5th, 1945. So that sets the scene for the rest of Our Man Adelaide, Book 6 in the series, The Vitruvian Man, written by Martin Schiller, and the audiobook will be ready with you imminently, available through Audible, Amazon, iTunes, and you can find me on Instagram. That's it, actually, don't use anything else. Becca Tells Tales. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Mwah!